interested parties evaluate. A film distributor may be contacted at, at an early stage to forecast the likely market and potential financial success of the film. Hollywood distributors adopt a strict business approach and consider factors such as the film genre, the target audience, the historical success of similar films, the actors who might appear in the film, and potential directors. All of these factors imply a certain appeal of the film to a possible audience during the theoretical theatrical release. Not all films make a profit from the theatrical release alone. Theatrical release alone. So the film companies take DVD sales and worldwide distribution rights into account.
Okay. So this is, I mean, this is such a great paragraph, right? Because a lot of the things that we talked about, you guys are already seeing, right? Look at all the planning that has to happen. What they're saying is, a screenwriter, and this is really, really important, a screenwriter develops a screenplay. A screenplay is really, a lot of times, for instance, what happens when you take a famous book that's maybe 500 pages long, right? A screenplay is like a 70 to 80 page version, let's say, or a 100-page version at most of that book, right? Which takes the most important story pieces, right? And starts putting them into like characterizations, right? You have like scene on a subway, Shin and Minsu are talking. Shin's dialogue, Minsu's dialogue, something happens, Pedro walks in. Next scene, in a restaurant, Tamid is sitting there, talking on the phone, right? A screenplay is showing you. It's like a script. It's like a story, but it's also showing you what's happening. Right? It's showing you all the events, the important events that are happening in the movie. And once again, this is what is often submitted. You can see what happens. A lot of times what they're saying is the screenwriter may rewrite it several times to improve dramatization, clarity, structure. For instance, you want certain, if there's something that's really strong about the story, you want to make sure that the screenplay really brings that out, right? You want the investors to see that, and you want them to believe in it the same way that you believe in it, right? That's something that's really important. But what's interesting over here is that, there's many different ways. Sometimes producers start with the idea themselves. And sometimes screenwriters actually, they have their own ideas. They develop their own screenplays, and they say, here, please take this and tell me what you think. And if you think that we can go to a distribution company, one of these, like when you watch a film, you see like, what's the biggest one in Korea? What's the biggest movie company in Korea? I forget their name. I know Toho's the big one in Japan, right? And like in America, you have so many, right? You have Warner Brothers, you have, you have all these companies, right, that distribute films, right? They are the investors. They're the ones with the money, right? That they decide which screenplay do we like, and we say, okay, we like this one, start making it, right? They're the investors over here. They're the ones who provide us with the funding. So right now, look at how interesting this is, all the steps that are taken. Right? What they're saying is, they develop submitted screenplays which investors, studios, and other interested parties evaluate, right? So there's a lot of different people, maybe even individual investors, a lot of independent films, right? That have small budgets, maybe a couple of $1 million, right? Maybe even one person will invest in the movie. Be like, here's $3 million that you need. We'll be like, our plan will show that we think we need $3 million to film this entire project, right? Then they're going to come in and say, okay, well, here's your $3 million, take it, and then just give me like the profits or something, or we share the profits or something like that, right? So think about what they're doing. The distribution companies, right? A film distributor may be contacted at an early stage to forecast. Now, forecast is, where have you seen the word forecast before? Weather, right? Well, why? Because a weather forecast is you're predicting, right? So forecasting is really, really important in business in general, right? How much money do you think this movie can earn? How many people do you think will watch the movie in the first week that we release it, right? These companies do a lot of research. Forecasting comes from research, right? Let's just write that. Forecasting / research. So I want you to think about this. This is very, very important, right? These companies, large distribution companies, have a lot of data, right? So they have data. What is data? For instance, data, it could be something historical, right? That a movie like this, if it's a horror movie, we think a horror movie like this came out 3 years ago. In the first week, 10 million people watched it. In the second week, 7 million people watched it. We think that this movie has a similar potential, right? We think that it's going to take the same amount of money. We think that it's going to, take the same, is going to have the same amount of people watching it. And this stuff is important because when you present the plan to your investors, right? The biggest thing that they also want to see is how much money do you think this can earn? How successful do you think this will be? Then you can say, well, we are forecasting based on our research that there was a movie like this that came out 2 years ago. Or we think that these types of movies have been very popular over the last 2 years, right? Your research tells you what your forecast should be. And your forecast is going to say, we think that in the first month, because this many people are going to watch it, this movie is going to earn $80 million in the first month, right? So that's going to be the forecast, right? And the forecast it's about a lot of things. There's research about so many things, right? Just think about it. It's kind of like this, right? If we are coming out with, if you're thinking about clothes, right? A forecast could be how many units, right? How many of these coats can we sell in the winter, do you think? How many can we sell in the summer? Spring, autumn, right? We can look at the seasonal trends. We can look at other companies that have come up with similar types of either t-shirts or coats like this, right? And we can say, okay, how much business did they do, right? How much business did they do? So all of this is like, there's a lot of different things. But you have to show your investors that we've thought about this from this perspective, that perspective, and that perspective. Many different ways we've thought about this, right? And we feel very, very confident that this movie can earn us $80 million in the first month, right? So what they do is they might contact distributors because distributors have that data, right? They have the knowledge. Data basically equals knowledge, right? In this case, data equals knowledge. What is data? Data is basically numbers, right? You track numbers, you track facts. That we know that 23 million people watched the last Twilight movie, or the last Harry Potter movie. We know in the very first month, we earned $300 million from the last Harry Potter movie, right? So you contact them early on, and you get an idea from them. Okay, what can we use to put in our plan, right? And then look at this. Look where they're going next, right? Hollywood distributors adopt a strict business approach, right? And consider factors, right? Such as the film genre, So a factor, the word factor over here, right, is basically, that's the best way to explain factor to you guys. A factor is a dependency, right? The movie's success, right? Your success, like if you're studying a language, right? Your success depends on two principal factors, right? Two factors, right? It depends on how much you study, your hard work, and how much you practice, right? Those are really the two most important factors. So factors really are, in English we would say it's a determinant. For something that determines success or failure, right? Success or failure. Right? So when you think about it, it's thinking about multiple factors. The film genre, is it a horror movie, an action movie, an adventure movie, science fiction? Okay, so for each of these genres, right, we have an idea that we think horror movies on average can generate $30 to $50 million, okay? Action movies on average can generate $80 to $100 million. Adventure movies can generate $150 million, right? They have an idea of what the average success, financial success of a movie can be, right? They can get this many people to buy them, right? And then, so what he's saying is, like, for instance, the target audience, right? Harry Potter movies. Who do you think goes to Harry Potter movies? Vincent? Who do you think are the biggest group?
Young guys.
Young people, right? Maybe teenagers, little kids, right? not too many people who are like older, right? Maybe some, but mostly it's little kids. They're like, Mom, I want to go watch Harry Potter, right? Same thing with who do you think watches like science fiction movies?
Adults.
Like
Young adults.
more like teenagers and adults, right? People who like science fiction novels or they like shows, right? Normally kids, they don't really start reading that stuff till they're like in their teens, right? That's when I first started reading science fiction and I started playing StarCraft and all this stuff, right? So the thing is that, so once again, they think about, who is the audience for this movie? Then the second question is, how big is that audience? There's a lot more fans of adventure movies and action movies than there are science fiction fan movies, right? So that determines how much revenue we can make, right? It's pretty simple. It makes a lot of sense when you think about it, right? So these distribution companies, Warner Brothers, all the Paramount Pictures, right? Universal Studios, all of these distribution companies, right? They'll look at these screenplays and they'll say, okay, immediately tell me, what genre is it? If you know what genre is, then you know what genre is, what type of movie it is, right? If you know the type of movie, then you know the audience, and you know how big that audience is, right? That's a big thing. And then you might think about who can act in this movie. Are you going to be able to get, let's say, who's a really famous female actress in American cinema? Anyone.
Sandra Bullock.
Sandra Bullock. Okay, fine. So we know that if we put, let's say, the more famous someone is, right, the easier it is to sell their films, right? Because people want to go watch those movies, right? So then the idea is, okay, this is a horror movie. Do you think we could get Sandra Bullock or someone like, or Angelina Jolie to do this? Maybe. I mean, then you'll be like, oh, if it was a romantic comedy, then of course both of them would do it, right? Or if it was an action movie, we think Angelina Jolie would do it, right? But so that's also important, right? Because that changes your audience, right? Because if you put Sandra Bullock in a horror movie, right? Even people who are not fans of horror movies, they'll go watch it because they're fans of Sandra Bullock, right? So, they consider these things about, okay, who do we think can act in this movie, right? That's a really, really important part of the movie, right? But then the other part is also, who's going to direct the movie? Because the director is critical, right? The director is creating, bringing everything to life. Just like in the first paragraph, they're bringing everything to life. They're taking these ideas that are on a piece of paper right now, and ultimately they're the ones who are turning it into a film, right? So they take all these factors, these determinants of success or failure, the things that determine whether you're successful or whether you fail. They take all of these factors into consideration, right? And that basically is the research that helps them forecast. So do you guys get it? You guys get it? It's kind of interesting, isn't it, how it works? So once again, you guys are beginning to see how movies that are works of art, these are big business decisions that are made about these, right? And of course, you're not just thinking, so far we've just been talking about theatrical, right? Theatrical, how many people are going to come watch the movie. But there's also worldwide distribution, right? For instance, if Toho creates a really famous Japanese movie, right, that they want to release in North American theaters, then Toho also gets revenue from international rights, right? You have to give someone the license to show the movie and actually send them the film reels, right? Or a Korean movie, if they want to release it in England, right, or in Spain, right, a Spanish distribution company has to buy the rights. So you can get maybe a lot of money, right? The worldwide distribution of the movie, right? That's one thing. And also DVDs, right? A lot of movies, there's a lot of like horror movies and stuff. It's something called straight to DVD, right? There's not a big enough population to go watch it in the theaters, but you shoot it and you just create DVDs of it and you sell the DVDs and they can make a lot of money this way. Because you might only spend $6 or $7 million making it, but 25 million, if 10 million DVDs are sold, your profit might be